There are two small bits missing, Henrik. I'm not sure if you understand where I'm coming from, because being with my background, I always find it very interesting to hear about not only technology and best practices, but also what do we do in validation and maybe equally important, how do we maintain that validated state of a cloud system after that? So Henrik, I think you feel like me that we see this adoption of the cloud in life science. We've heard Microsoft, we've heard Sajeka talk about the beauty of it, and then we normally are the people that basically tear the dreams apart, because we say, well, that needs to be validated, and those technology people, they just all the light in their eyes basically go out when we say that. But looking at this in a very overall context, looking at validation, what are the differences we see from a validation standpoint now, and what is important to consider when we move from old on-site on-prem installations and then onto the cloud? Could you give me some perspectives on that?
Yeah, I think before I sort of directly answer your question, I would like to sort of remind ourselves why are we moving to the cloud, right? We want to have better business support. We want to improve our efficiency and take advantage of some of the technologies that both Jesper and Dominic provides us with, right? And that means that we will also face more changes, more adoption. So historically, we've also seen that changes is a bad thing, right? It's a risk. It takes time. It takes effort. So I think the first thing I would like to talk to is actually sort of more like on an organizational side or stakeholder side, because the way we see it, we are looking into 4 different types of stakeholders, 3 of them internal and 1 external. So we come from a QA background, right? But in this case, it's business drive, typically buying the system and IT supporting, and then we have the QA on the inside. And then the partner comes in alongside with Microsoft or with Sajeka, and all these 4 different stakeholders. We often see that they come with different terminologies, at least different objectives, different goals for what they want to achieve with this, right? So what we often see is basically 2 timelines. We often see different system support. We see a lot of manual work trying to combine these different stakeholders because they come from different standpoints or different backgrounds. So our first concern is basically, in order to drive efficient changes and being able to maintain validated state, we need to combine these. We need to create a common ground. Yeah. So we need to be aligned on how do we document, how do we test, how do we control all of these tools that Jesper and Dominic are concerned with, right? And basically thinking about it, I think one of the key drivers for why I think Microsoft and Sajeka, or at least perceived from outside, has been successful and more successful in the pharma industry is because Microsoft had to provide these tools in a very structured way. So the operating procedures for operating the clouds, the tools supporting it, the documentation supporting it across many industries, but specifically also for pharma, they just have to be in place. So as you said in the beginning, Klaus, when adopting to the cloud, a lot of things are just provided to us. Then Dominic and other partners comes in and they are able to actually add content and add best practices, which we can leverage. So basically, in order to achieve better functionality for the business, meaning more rapid changes, more flexibility, we want to adopt these tools. We want to adopt this documentation. We want to reuse it instead of trying to rewrite everything as we've seen in the past, right? We've basically seen 2 separate projects, one on the implementation side and one on the documentation / validation side. So we want to bring all of this together and bring common ground. So I think the missing part here is the last thing, QA, right? Sometimes we see them come in very late with their own systems. So basically, we want to align all of these new technologies, these processes, these tools, these best practices with what we have already. So we have to merge that with what we see with our customers. We always have to look into the quality management system, the current SOPs, because we need to adopt these new ways of working and these new tools and create that common ground. And I think basically that is sort of the first thing that we need to do. We need to have all stakeholders aligned. We need one plan, and we need that not only for the project, but also for the operational phase, right? So that was sort of my a little different take on it. But from our side, I think this is very important that we see this organization change management as part of these projects.
And I really like your take on that, Henrik, not only due to the stakeholders you were already mentioning, but also because of us, because we are always the people that are saying no to everything. And then if we get to that common ground, and the common way of doing things, we do not get to be the angry people, but more like working with the project rather than trying to stop everything. So I really follow you on that. But it was also a very general statement, and I'm not going to let you go with or get away with that. So also I need to understand. So what does this concretely mean, Henrik? So going with maybe a little bit more into the validation, the engine room. So what do we have to consider then in context of the actual validation? How do we overcome that on an overall level?
Yeah. So as I think you said in the beginning, the projects are basically preparation for operation. Sorry, I have a cold. So basically what we're using the project for is aligning all of these, all of our documentation and our procedures for the coming changes, right? And I think what has sometimes been cumbersome in the older days and trying to maintain is basically the traceability, right? If we take the V model, right, we have all the requirements, the specifications, everything on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side we have the testing, right? And in the middle we have some kind of traceability. I think Excel has been used a few times in that to control this, right? So yeah. So if we want to speed up the process of being able to actually handle these changes, we're not moving away from the V model. We are just suggesting a slightly different focus, because we are suggesting that instead of looking at requirements first, we might start, so our focal point might be processes. Obviously, the traceability needs to be there. We need the trace to the requirements. We need the trace to our specification. We need the trace to the test. But if we focus in on the business processes, we have common ground again to talk from. A business user does not think, I need this requirement. He's thinking about changing a process, right? He needs to be more efficient in what he's doing. I'm sorry, Jesper, but Microsoft does not provide the luxury of actually relating a release note to a URS somewhere, right? So how do we map the two? How do we actually analyze what is the impact of a change? We do that through a process. So that's sort of the first thing that we would like to do. The second thing is that we need to be smart about how we do our risk assessments, right? So we like to think of it very simple. So basically dividing it into GXP and non-GXP, right? Because that drives a lot of stuff. And when we have the division on the other hand side, we would like to think of it whether this is a fit for the application or a gap, because all of that matrix basically drives how we specify, how we test, the amount of control that we need to perform on a specific change, and subsequently basically also how we are able to release anything, right? Because we also need to make sure that we have stuff that we have pre-approved, so release stuff that can handle, because we know it's pre-approved and it's easy for us to handle. So I think a slight change of mindset here. I know many of our customers are doing this already, but also we also meet a lot of sort of traditional thinking that we start with the URS and then we work our way down through the V model, and it doesn't relate very well when Jesper says agile, right? Difficult.
Oh, but I can see in front of me here, so I can definitely get the view, Henrik, of Dominic's 500 processes, in a library where we denote them, are they being GXP or non-GXP, and I can also see if we can denote them whether are they fits or are they gaps, and we can upfront basic relate it and see how much test do we do on each of those 4 categories, and then again when we get into the change and configuration situation, how much are we going to test it depending on where that specific change is relating to a process. So I think it's a very strong way of controlling the traceability.
And again, when we're working with partners like Cegeka, right, we are just provided with so much documentation, so we don't have to invent everything ourselves, right? Makes everything less effort, less risk, and faster.
But that brings me to my next question, Henrik. So again, you're not going to get away too easy here. So you're talking a lot about the vendor, and quite honestly, what requirements do you think we should, from a validation standpoint, should be putting on those vendors? Now I know that Dominic is happy to host a GXP audit at least, but what do we need to be aware of on the vendor / implementation side?
Yeah, so basically we think of in 2 dimensions, right? Because Microsoft develops the software and operates the system. So we need a strategy for how we qualify Microsoft. We've been doing that for a long time in Epista. Jesper revealed that many of the big pharma out there has already done that. So we know that's possible. It's basically a standard service for us, right? To do that qualification of Microsoft. When it comes to the implementation partner, which is often the case, it's rarely Microsoft implementing themselves. It's companies like Cegeka. It's a broader picture, right? So typically they don't have quality management systems as we know it in our industry, right? They have methodologies and they may have some tools supporting them. And basically, in order for us to take all the good practices that they bring to the table and the tools and the documentation, we need to qualify the partner. So what we typically recommend is a separate quality plan, basically including the best practices of the partner and inserting the controls needed so that we verify that we are in control with both for the project implementation, but also for the operation of the system. So it's a 2-way dimension, and obviously it's nice to hear from Dominic that we are welcome. It makes everything easier, right? When you're ready for this.
He doesn't seem like he's regretting his remark. I can see he's still smiling. So it's not too bad. But then again, we are hammering a lot on Dominic and maybe also a little bit on Jesper, Henrik. But I think that there's one question that and it's going to be my last one for today, which basically is more around the life science companies themselves, so our customers and this new way of thinking in terms of cloud platform, continuous updates, etc. On a very short note, how do we see our clients, or how do we recommend our clients basically prepare for this?
Yeah, obviously we need to consider all the stuff that we already discussed, right? Choosing the right system, the right implementation partner, but all that. But what we often see and is that we are so focused with implementation of the new solution, right? Business drives this; they want to be more efficient, right? And all this operational stuff, we sometimes kind of forget it until late. So basically, our recommendation here is for our customers is start focusing on operation as soon as possible. Make sure that you have your operating procedures in place, so you know how to use the tools from Microsoft, you know how to work with partners like Cegeka, and be very sure that you have your internal positioning right, so you have the right resources where you need those controls. And I think most of our clients should be aware that they will need someone like Cegeka to support them going forward, because there are so many very specific tasks that we do on some regular basis, but with a very limited time. But you need the skill set, so you cannot maintain that capability internally. So set up an operational agreement, basically, right? So the Rocky is there, so you know who does what once we're into operation. And remember to include QA in this.
Yeah, exactly. But actually, what you're saying is what we usually like to see, right? That is getting the control in place. That is what compliance is all about. So I'm sure that echoes a lot that we have been talking about through many years, basically. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your different perspectives, the three-dimensional perspectives on Always Compliant. I think a very good discussion here, and I think that we were basically taking a couple of different cuts on this challenge. So talking about the process understanding and process knowledge, both on the platform from you, Jesper, talking about the vision and the strategy for Microsoft on life science, the functionalities in place, and what is really important. From you, Dominic, talking about the process, knowledge that we need to have to do the actual implementations, but also about accelerators and best practices to do these implementations of Dynamics 365. So very well indeed, and also you, Henrik, talking about the validation and maintaining the validated state after that. So all in all, I think that we have those three perspectives, and guys, this was exactly what I wanted to achieve. So thank you very much for this. And